Hi guys, in today's episode, we're going to be looking at the GWS Giants, how they went this year in 2022, and what do we think they're going to be doing in 2023. How you going, Joe?
Good, Big J. Interesting discussion coming up today, talking about the feeders of the AFL, as you like to call them. The team that develops the players, the young players, the youth, the high draft picks, and then they go elsewhere. It's an interesting one.
It's interesting. Like you say, it's pretty interesting. Outside of their older players, maybe the guys taken in the first kind of round of players, they really haven't been able to keep that much. Excuse me.
Bless
they really
you.
Haven't been able to keep that much talent at the club, right? They either have really old, experienced guys or really young kids.
Well, I would stay around too if they're paying me big bucks like they pay these guys. Like my guy, that keeps causing all of their salary cap issues, and they just keep dumping these players and sending them elsewhere. Like, my goodness, you'd think you'd learn your lesson the first time round, but it is what it is. It's a new era now under Kingsley. They got a new coach. A lot of players have left, as we're going to see, and they've had a fairly indifferent season. Some might say disappointing, depending on how people rated the list. But they really are an interesting team. It's weird. It's hard to get a good handle on them.
Yeah, for a side that has so much talent, they just can't perform. This year, similar to last year when they picked up Callahan as well. Just not kind of the right. I don't know if it's the right mix or a Leon problem. Obviously, Leon Cameron, the coach that previously left. I don't know if you saw the news today talking about Himmelberg and how Cameron's still trying to play him in the forward line. So Kingsley's still trying to play him in the forward line. So we'll see how that works out. But, they've got so much talent on that list that you'd assume that they'd want to do better or that they could. Maybe it's the constant purge of like the younger players that's kind of left their last, let's say, like 8 or 9 players on the field not being as good as other teams. But when you pay guys $1 million to stay at your club, you don't really have much money to go around anywhere else, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we saw that a lot of these performances, they weren't inspired performances. Some even said that they checked out, right? Fairly strong comments there by Spike McVeigh, who was there as a caretaker coach after Leon left. And I remember there was a lot of us happy that Leon had left because he was the reason that these Giants players kept getting screwed over Supercoach wise. And then we saw Spike McVeigh come in, and he sent Harry Himmelberg, affectionately known as Thor, into the back line. And my goodness, we absolutely loved that. So I don't want to hear this news about Kingsley wanting to play him forward. It hurts my feelings, but at the same time, we can understand they lost, Finlayson. At the time, it wasn't considered a very big blow, but we saw as the year went on that they were really missing key position players. And, Jesse Hogan by himself really struggled. He only kicked 20 goals for the year. So you saw, 84.6%. Their performances were fairly poor. Their best performance was the bounce back game after, they were accused of checking out against a fairly disappointing Bombers outfit this year as well. So, it doesn't say much, that they beat Essendon by 27 points. And that sort of just reflects the indifferent sort of year that they've had.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll talk about who they brought in the draft, but losing Jeremy Cameron for 3 first-round picks wasn't great. And obviously, Geelong offered him a lot of money to come across, but they really haven't been able to recover from his loss. So Lob left as well. Jeremy Cameron left. That's a lot of tall firepower in that forward line that have now just kind of departed. As you're saying, Hogan really hasn't done much either. So hopefully he can kind of come back to form at some point. But kicking, tall forward kicking, it's important in the AFL. And GWS has kind of lost that at the moment.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he's just not that mobile type of modern key forward that we're seeing all of these teams really start to unearth and develop. He seems to be quite steady, quite rigid, very strong, of course, but he just doesn't seem to have that athleticism nor the height that the modern day forward possesses and is a feature now of this modern game, being able to bring the ball forward quickly to these players who are 200 plus centimeters and yet have the agility of someone who is like 180 centimeters.
Yeah.
And so you just find that, especially the loss of Jazza Cameron, who absolutely was one of Geelong's most important, influential players in winning that flag. Losing someone of that ilk, it obviously leaves a lot to be desired in the forward line. And then when you got people like, even then, when you have the small forward, your primary small forward and Bobby Hill, unfortunately was hit with testicular cancer during the year. And, it's great that he's finally back out, and we wish him luck at Collingwood, but that obviously hurt the Giants and Toby Green suspensions. Like, it was really hard. They were really devoid of options in their forward half.
It's rough.
That's all we can say.
Get better.
Yeah, exactly. So we look at how they can get better, and they've addressed their small forward problem by getting one Bedford from Melbourne, who was stuck as their emergency sub. Now, obviously, the emergency sub is gone, so maybe he didn't have to leave to go to GWS to get his opportunity, but that's what's happened.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was probably about 3 or 4 teams that were really after him. Once they realised, hey, Bedford's probably available, one of those fringe guys that does perform well on field, runs, tackles, kicks goals, but when your forward line's really only going to play one small forward and Cozzy Pickett's in your team, like, you're not going to push him out, right? So GWS were lucky to pick him up. And the reason why they've done that is, as you can see on the right-hand side, talking about Bobby Hill's onto the Pies. So there's basically a slot position for him there. GWS also lost Taranto and Hopper to the Tigers. Huge losses for them. But probably I would consider maybe their last guys who were really affecting the salary cap. And hopefully now it's evened out a little bit more, that they can retain a few more of their younger players instead of having to trade them away. Those two have left. Hill's left. Tanner Bruin went to Geelong, I think, for a first-round pick as well. So a fantastic pickup for Geelong. Bit of a miss from GWS. I think his first year was really good, but he kind of fell off a little bit this year. So losing him wasn't fantastic, but it happens. And then Brander, Sproul, Stein delisted and then picked up by Gold Coast, and then Matt DeBoer as well. So the tag machine, Matt DeBoer. I think injuries and just kind of time have surpassed him there as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Nice. We joke. We're joking with the Rip Bozo. That's just us joking because it's a sign of respect. When you hate a tagger, it's a sign of respect that this tagger is A1, is a killer at their job.
And they've done their job, right?
Nothing but respect for Matt DeBoer. He has killed many a super coach captain when you're up against the Giants. And I won't forget how he had absolutely blanketed Clayton Oliver, who only got off the leash after he got injured at halftime. So when he was subbed out. So look, massive respect to Matt DeBoer. He's had a sensational career, and the fact that we've got this picture up is just a testament to how good he has been during his career. Now, I know you mentioned, Big J, that Tim Taranto, Hopper were eating up probably the last big players eating in the salary cap. What about Kelly? I think Kelly's on big bucks too. And from what I recall, you guys tried to throw a lot of money at him.
That's true. But obviously that didn't happen and he stayed at GWS. I think Kelly, some teams can afford to have maybe 4 or 5 guys on decent money. but they can't afford to have 6, 7, 8. And
No.
GWS has lost, those other 6, 7, 8 players now. So Kelly, Whitfield on decent money, Toby Green on decent money, and Keneally on decent money. It's okay. Front load those contracts, move them around, that kind of thing. What about Kelly? I would love him at the Roos, but it is what it is.
I know that was more so a dig at you guys. I'm sorry. I love teasing you guys in North Melbourne.
Sorry, maybe Clarko can get back.
Yeah, for a bit less, maybe. Unlikely, but yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Yes, one can only hope, mate. So what they didn't fill in through the trade, they filled in through the draft, and they knew that they had lost a lot of firepower up forward, and I'm sure they had zero issues trading up to get that prize number 1 pick, and they didn't even waste their time on a bid. They went straight for Cadman, the key forward who had burst onto the scene, clearly the number 1 forward option. They picked up Harry Rouston, a midfielder at pick 16. They also picked up Darcy Jones, pick 21. They picked up Max Gruzowski, who I know you guys were really keen. I know you were keen to pick him up for North Melbourne, the tall utility at pick 22. And Toby McMullen, a forward mid at pick 34. You look at that draft hand of 5 players within the first 34 picks. You could see that they were really rated hard, and they just gained all of these draft picks as a result. The question is, can these players develop and stay on the list?
It's interesting because let's kind of just go through the first couple. Cadman wasn't rated, I don't think, in the top 10 until this year in the draft, so was a real draft bolter. As guys like Scully and Lemony kind of fell back in the draft, Cadman really went forward and kind of cemented his spot as that key forward. We've spoken about Lobb and we've spoken about Jezza Cameron leaving, and Cadman's supposed to be like for like of Jezza Cameron. So if they can keep him, if they can, develop him that way in the draft, from the draft into the team, it's a great pickup for them. Roaston as well was bloody Sydney was trying to do trades and they actually bidded on him because he was one of their next gen academy players. So they could have almost had another first round pick in there as well. So bit of a hard done by GWS, but it is what it is sometimes.
Crosstown rivals.
Yeah. You look at those players and the ones they've really lost, and overall, I think it's probably a like for talent, which is fantastic, which is a fantastic result for them. It probably just means that we'll speak about GWS's ladder position next, but it probably just means that they're going to be around similar as well. Another year of development. They've lost a couple of mature age players, that kind of thing, but the future's bright. It's more about the list management now and that building that culture that players want to stick around instead of, hey, I'm Victoria and I want to go back to Victoria kind of feeling.
That's right. That's right. Yes, it's really hard. And the thing is, there's no real expectation. New list, new team, leadership under Kingsley. And I feel like you also have a new leadership on the field with the likes of Tom Green, who really, I feel, came onto the scene a lot heavier, a lot stronger this year that came by. And I know a lot of people that were really impressed by what they saw in him and picked them up in Supercoach. And I think he rewarded them. He really seemed to shoot up and to prove to people that, he's the real deal. And, you can see that they're trying to build a much more dynamic midfield. And they understand that, they're happy to take the time and to really develop well under Kingsley, who is a really respected figure in football spheres. And so when you've got a rookie, a young man, the name of Phil Davis, there to stick around on the list, he could be a player. This one, it's just amazing having someone of that caliber also be around the club, helping to drive standards. Someone who didn't leave, someone who has been through quite a bit of adversity with a failing body, and yet he continues to front up all the time. You can only hope that this new look Giants side can really develop these players and have them stay and build a different culture, not one that is, predicated on being paid big bucks to stay. It's you just hope that this team that so much investment has gone into, and they were so close to winning a flag, maybe even two, but
3 years ago, I think.
yeah, time flies so quickly, and now they find themselves in a rebuild. But you know, it can work out for them. I think it's the rebuild that they needed to have.
I think they're in a similar position to where I would say Essendon is in terms of ladder position, but also team building. You've got your established players, but they're bringing in key cogs as well. So cogs, bringing in key cogs as well. So yeah, it works out nice for them.
As long as Cogs plays with that role still, he keeps his role. You never know.
Yeah.
He could be. It could be another option for next year. And speaking of next year, 6 wins we predict. Roughly the same, similar to what we saw this last year that came by.
I think they're going to have games where they dominate kind of the bottom half of the ladder, but I don't see them winning too many games against the top half. So kind of depending on their draw, that kind of thing, if they're playing teams that are like, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, they should give them a fair chance, like a fair win. But I don't see them being like your Geelong, Melbourne, Richmond, those type of teams. So, 6 wins between 14 and 18 is pretty fair, I reckon.
Yeah, for sure. They've. I'm excited to see how they look under this new coach, who we've only ever heard good things about him. And you look at the guy, and he just screams alpha male at you. And I know that that was an area that the Giants wanted to address. That's why they brought Hurdy back in that leadership advisory sort of position in the first place before Spike McVeigh became the caretaker coach and brought him as an assistant coach. Yeah. It seemed like the Giants were aware that they are lacking this sort of strong leadership, and they reached out to Hurdy. So I almost feel like this is going to, more of that element is going to be coached into the players. There's going to be, I think, a stronger cohesive unit being built on the field with everyone playing with each other, which should, given the talent that they've got, beat the bottom 4 teams. But everyone's getting better in the top 10 to 12. It's so hard to break into that echelon, and it's just not the Giants' time yet. They've only just started a mini rebuild here. Do you reckon this is the start of a bigger rebuild, or is this all we're going to see, you reckon?
Who else do they have to leave, really? That kind of comes down to it, right? Like maybe a ruckman has to go, and then that kind of thing. But we've already seen like their fringe-ish ruckman taking over. They don't really have anyone else that can kind of leave, right? Apart from actually players just retiring and then guys coming back. I think it's going to be a build. I think they're probably in their tail end of the rebuild now. Kind of depending on how many more first-round picks they've got between next year and the year after. But I don't see them like culling everybody and then doing it because they just can't. They really need those kind of, we've spoken about key expensive players in the team. For them to lose like a Kelly or a Toby Green kind of thing due to a rebuild, it'd be devastating for them.
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%. There's no Hawthorn being done here.
No,
I'm sure they wanted. I'm sure they would have loved to have held on to their players, but it is what it is. It seems like they're building for the future. They've picked up a lot of aggressive forward running players in the midfield that can push forward and kick goals. They've picked up the key forward and Cadman. So you can see that they're not shying away. They've embraced this, and we're looking forward to seeing them in the next couple of years. So that brings us to a close in our discussion here about the Giants. Any final things you have to say there, Big J?
if I was a fan, I would expect some wins, but also expect some exciting games. But kind of realize as well that, hey, you guys are in a bit of a transition at the moment, so you might get smashed a few games, but that's okay.
Exactly, 100%. You want to finish low this year anyway. It's a sick draft from all reports,
Picking
and
up another first rounder will be insane for them.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So, thanks for joining, guys. Thanks for watching. You've been watching the Center Balance talk about the Giants. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun jazz, and stay tuned for the rest of the teams to come, as well as some Supercoach content as well. So, thanks, guys.
Catch you next time. Bye.